The movie opens with Bea arriving at a hospital after some kind of an incident. She is put in a coma and all her family members arguing with each other. In her coma state, Bea starts talking to us. She tells us she doesn't remember what happened to her. She tries to think backwards, but she goes way back and starts remembering her childhood. She then tells us if she is going to tell us about her childhood, then we should first know about her parents. We are taken to a flashback to 18 years earlier. Bea's father, Deluxe, is doing some housework in front of Bea's mom's, Sharon's, home. Before we get to know them more, Bea tells us both her parents are mentally disabled. Her dad was hit by a drunk driver when he was 12 and it stunted his brain growth, and her mom was born that way. Sharon sees Deluxe working from her window and asks her parents if she can give him lemonade. Her dad Earl objects, but Peg tells her she can. Sharon then brings the lemonade to Deluxe and asks him if he wants to go on a date. Deluxe says yes, and after one date, they get married in Vegas. Both sets of parents meet after the wedding to discuss what to do with Deluxe and Sharon. The parents are afraid the couple can't raise a child, so they are discussing what to do about it. Deluxe's father proposes they sterilize Sharon, but he is told he can't do that. Peg thinks that Deluxe and Sharon might not be interested in having children, but Sharon gets pregnant immediately after and gives birth to Bea. For the first few months after Bea was born, Sharon and Deluxe stayed at Peg's home, and she helped them raise Bea. But one day Deluxe announces he has gotten a job and tells them they are moving. Peg tried to convince them to stay, but they refused and left. Then for the next few years, Bea and her parents lived in a van while they worked to get a home. Fast forward to when Bea is 10 and Deluxe has finally afforded to get a home, and the three are living happily. Bea is raised with a lot of freedom, and she also has a lot of responsibilities at home. At just 10 years old, she is the one that takes care of her mom. She makes sure she brushes her teeth and showers, and also gets her ready before going home. Deluxe is also teaching her how to drive his truck, and although she doesn't want to, since she can't even properly see through the high windshields, he convinces her to do it by giving her a pet dog. Bea loves her dog, but one day, Sharon accidentally lets the dog out and he runs away. Bea sees him from afar, so to catch up to him, she gets into Deluxe's truck and drives it. But since she can't see where she is going, she crashes the car. Child Protective Services then sends Agent Mary to check up on the family and see if they had to do anything with the accident, but Bea lies and protects her parents. Bea then goes to her Aunt Joy's home to spend the summer, and throughout her stay, Joy and her husband see she has not been raised well. They then decide to ask Sharon if they could raise Bea, but Sharon actually calls the police on them, claiming they stole her daughter. Bea then goes back to her parents, but Joy convinces them to at least pay for her tuition so she can go to a good private school. Fast forward another 7 years and Bea is a senior in high school. Bea is top of her class and thinking of applying to top colleges, but she is the one still caring for her parents, so she is not sure if she can leave them alone. She has a best friend named Nia and a nemesis and bully named Esther. Bea is dead set on beating Esther on selling more school fundraising tickets. If she beats her, she gets to go to Disneyland for free, and she is excited about that. Bea doesn't know a lot of people that could buy the tickets, so at night, she goes to the streets to sell them. She isn't in much luck, as the guys looking to talk to her are looking for something else, and Nia stops her before she gets molested by a pedophile. The next day, Bea and Nia hear about a party in Esther's home. They usually wouldn't go to her party, but Ethan, a new kid at the school who previously tried to flirt with Bea, is going, so they decide to go. But for Esther to let them in, they need to bring alcohol, so they trick Sharon into buying for them, and they go to the party. In the party, Bea doesn't interact with the party, and when she meets face-to-face with Esther, she gets made fun of for her being poor, and she rushes into a secluded room. In there, she runs into Ethan, who tells her that he has gotten sick. She then takes him to the hospital, and it turns out to be nothing major. Ethan had cancer when he was a kid, so every time he gets sick, he thinks his cancer has come back, but Bea calms him down. Shortly after that, Bea and Ethan get closer and they start dating. They quickly fall madly in love and spend all their free time together. Ethan also gets to meet her parents, and to Bea's surprise, he gets along with them. For the first time, we see Bea very happy and confident. She even gets back at Esther and embarrasses her in front of her friends. She was also getting perfect grades and was even becoming a star athlete in the school track team. One day, her principal, Mr. B, invites her to his office to talk to her about college. Bea has only applied to community colleges that are close, so she doesn't have to leave Ethan and her parents. But if he tells her she should now throw her future away, he asks her what her favorite subject it is, and when she answers astronomy, he gives her brochure for great colleges with that class. He convinces her that her parents can take care of themselves and motivates her to apply to the top colleges. That night she meets up with Ethan. He is excited for her, and he also asks her to go to prom with him. Bea protested prom before, but she excitedly accepts his proposal. The next day, Bea leaves early to shop for a prom dress. Before she leaves, Sharon asks her if she could take her to the store, but Bea tells her to ask direct. Bea then meets up with Nia and they start picking prom clothes. Bea can't decide what to wear, and they spend almost the whole day in there. Nia then gets frustrated and lets out her anger she has been holding on. Nia and Bea had decided to skip prom before, and Nia is angry Bea is breaking her promise. They then get into a massive argument and Nia leaves angry. Meanwhile, Sharon goes to the store alone. Underage kids that were hanging outside ask her to buy them beer and give her money. Sharon then accepts the money and buys them the drink, but the store owner sees her and reports her to the police for selling alcohol to underage kids. As she is getting arrested, Direct comes and tries to free her, so he also gets arrested. While Bea is getting home, she finds her lost dog in another person's garden. She then steals it and takes it home. As soon as she gets home, she gets a call from the police telling her what happened. Bea then uses all the money she saved for her prom dress and bails them out. When they get home, Bea tells them she wants her money back. Direct then reveals to her that he has lost his job a few weeks ago. Bea is angry that he didn't tell her, but she thinks they can survive with her mom's disability check until he gets another job. But he tells her he had canceled the disability check because he doesn't believe Sharon is disabled. This pisses Bea off, and she tells Direct that the reason everyone calls them special is because they are mentally challenged. She then gets into a massive fight with Direct, which ends with him slapping her and her leaving. The next day, Bea is called back to Mr. B's office. He asks her why she hasn't completed her application to UCLA, and she tells him because she is not going. She tells him she can't leave her parents because they would die without her. Bea then tries to convince her that her parents can take care of themselves, but it doesn't work, and she storms out of his office. Bea then goes to meet up with Ethan, hoping he would comfort her. But when she tells him she is not going, he also gets mad at her for throwing away her dream. The two then get into a massive fight, which ends with Ethan breaking up with her. Bea's life in 2 days has gone from the best to the worst. She decides to fix it by first making up with Nia. She goes to her home and apologizes for ignoring her while she was with Ethan, and for breaking their prom date. Nia forgives her but tells her that she is actually going to prom. Bea then helps her get ready for prom and sends her. The prom night, Bea gets bored sitting in her room, so she decides to sell the leftover tickets. She goes to the streets again, but she doesn't sell anything. She then runs into Esther's older brother, who has been trying to get with her, even though he is over 18. He invites her in his car, and in a weak moment she joins him. He then gives her beer, and she drinks alcohol for the first time. They then kiss a little, but when he tries to go further, she yells and tells him to stop the car. He stops the car and she runs out. She then vomits out all she drank. He then asks her to go back in his car so he can take her home, but she refuses and says she will go home by her leg. But since she is far away, he tells her he is not going to let her go by herself at night. He then grabs her hand, and when she yanks herself from his grasp, she trips and falls on her back, hitting her head on the way and getting knocked out. He and his friend then drive her to the hospital and leave her outside the door. And now we are in the present. It has been 3 days since Bea has been in a coma, and her parents and friends have been getting interrogated by Mary, the child protective agent. Sharon and Derek are sleeping by her side. When Bea finally wakes up and everyone celebrates, she immediately hugs her mom and apologizes for being harsh on her. Later that night, Ethan comes to visit her. Bea has sent all her family members home, so they can wash up and change so they are alone. They then make small talk before making up by kissing. In the next few weeks, Bea makes full recovery. Everyone helps her out, and for the first time since she was a child, Sharon and Derek actually took care of her. In a drive with Derek, Bea asks him what he would do if she moved out. He tells her that he expects her to move out just as he did and start her own life. Bea asks who then will take care of them, and he tells her he and her mother can take care of each other just fine. He promises they will be fine and reminds her that they had done it before she was born too. After hearing Derek's answer, Bea finally decides to apply to her dream college. Mr. V is happy for her and tells her he will help her get scholarships and will write her a letter of recommendation. Derek's and Sharon's parents also finally make up. They realize even though their children aren't perfect, They have created a perfect child. So they understand they should be supportive and loving instead of fighting and blaming each other every time something goes wrong. Bea graduates from high school with honor, and the movie ends with all the family gathered for lunch and Bea telling them she loves them. And with that, the movie ends.